Hi, GDG is a very interesting developer community.
I'm glad somebody has asked this question.
GDG is a very interesting developer community.
I'm glad somebody has asked this question.
This is where the magic happens.
This is primarily a question and answer show. So if any of you out there would like to ask questions.
Good morning from New York. Welcome to yet another edition of AppScript Live. My name is Kalyan, and this is Kalyan Reddy. He's a new member of our team. Kalyan,
hi guys.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I started here at Google about 2.5 weeks ago on the AppScript team, and I'm very excited to start working here. Seems like a great product, and I'm learning more and more every day. I hope to share that with you guys.
Okay. Kalyan's a new member of our team, so you're going to start seeing him more in these office hours as well as online in the groups, or excuse me, the Stack Overflow, Issues Tracker. You'll be seeing a lot more of his face and his remarks. So Kalyan, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself technically. What's your favorite programming language?
I work mostly with Java, but if I want to whip up something quick, I like to go the Python route.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything in particular, any libraries or frameworks you like in Java in particular?
I like them all, man.
You like them all? Wow, because I
everything.
can name some monstrosities.
I've been living for the last 2 years in the cold land of Minnesota, so there wasn't much to do except for go online and program. So hey, that's my background.
All right, cool. Well, welcome to New York City. New York City's happy to have you, and you're gonna have a blast out here.
Thank you.
Okay. So we've got a great show for you guys today. Before we start, I am always plugging events. We are doing an AppScript hackathon in Los Angeles. We had such a great time in Austin. We announced it a few weeks ago, and I will be plugging it every time on this show because I'm going to be there. I don't think we've decided if you're going to go or not.
I'd like to
you
go.
haven't. Hey, we'd love to have you. And we're going to have Arun, who you saw on the show a few weeks ago, will be all attending, as well as we'll be having some members of the core Inge team. So go on Google and search for AppScript Hackathon Los Angeles. It should be one of the first results. And if Google is working correctly, my face should show up next to the blog post. It's happening on Tuesday, November 3rd, in our Google Venice Beach office. This is where Venice Beach is where Arnold Schwarzenegger used to work out, and that's where he got his career before he had his breakout hit in Conan. So maybe we'll have a breakout hit there, right? You're gonna
maybe
hit the beach and maybe some famous.
Of course, we're gonna film some slow motion montages and upload that to the developers.
Slow motion montages of us coding. That's
it's gonna be great.
You know what? One day they're gonna make a movie of people actually programming instead of like when you see like these movies where people are like, oh my god, it's so exciting, and they have these 3D worlds, and they
can have like the music from Chariots of Fire.
Yeah, it's gonna be so terrible. It's just gonna be switching windows and using Vim. Yep, enough procrastinating. We're making Eric laugh too much. So Eric, who I'm usually on the show if he's producing for us today. Eric, say hi.
Hi.
I don't know if you heard that. He's shy anyway. No, he's not shy. So we've got that hackathon coming up. Just go on Google, search for AppScript Hackathon Los Angeles. It's in our office. We're gonna have food and drinks. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Right.
Definitely.
So why don't we go ahead and get started? We're going to talk a little bit about a recent release. We're going to go through some of the Q&A, and if we have any live audience members, let's talk. So let's start with some of the release notes.
All right. Can you guys see this? All right.
There it is.
So I think for these release notes, the only thing I'd like to really stress is that we are validating HTTP as certificates now. So if your app is doing a lot of URL fetch requests and you see some flakiness, you would want to set that to false.
Set the value to false.
Set the value to false.
Yeah, so what's happening is this is probably, we had a recent release last week. It's 21st last week? Yeah, it's like last Thursday. And there's a couple of new features, so check them out on search for AppScript release notes. But there's one thing that's very important that everyone should know is that if you're using URL fetch app at all, we were not validating HTTPS certificates. So a lot of places, they let their HTTPS certificates expire. And this is not intentional. Like I have been at places where, we ask people, I'm like, wait, do we have to renew the cert? And the guy next to me goes, oh, I think we do.
We should do that one of these days.
Oh yeah, it's so common that like a certificate will you'll forget to renew your certificate. It's a human error. And I remember one time we didn't do it because we put it on our calendar and we're like, oh, we're not gonna forget this. Then the company made us switch calendaring systems. So we're like, why isn't it on our calendar? And it's very common. But if you're seeing that you're making a call, obviously it's not secure because you're opening yourself up to what's called a man-in-the-middle attack. And a man-in-the-middle attack is if I'm sending you a message and Eric intercepts it and he rewrites stuff, right? Because Eric is very mischievous. Very mischievous guy. He can actually intercept and read the messages and pass them back and forth. So
I really don't trust Eric.
Wow. Yeah, I think there's a line there that you just like crossed. No, but the HTTP certificates are, definitely the default is safe, which is validate your certificates. But if there is a site that you can trust, you could set the false because sometimes you just want that. Sometimes you don't care if there's a man-in-the-middle. Like you're just getting some data and it's like public, right? But we leave that up to you to make that choice. So how do you feel about some Q&A?
Sounds good. Let's get to it.
Let's do it. I love your enthusiasm. You know what? Like that's why I'm happy to have you on this team because of your enthusiasm for Q&A.
Let's see here. So the first question we have is, I have a library containing a web app, UI app/doget, intended to work with each user's spreadsheet. How can a user of that library pass the ID of his own spreadsheet to the library? So there are a couple of ways to do this, and I quickly coded.
Let's clarify the question first.
Sure.
When I read this, I initially misunderstood. I thought he was asking us, if I am building a UI app, how can I ask the user for a spreadsheet ID? And that's why I misrepresented the question to Kalyan when I was talking to him in the morning. I said, oh yeah, because it really sucks to have to copy paste an ID from a URL bar and take it into this web app and put it into a text field.
Right, that would be a bad user experience.
Yeah, I mean, if you're whipping up something fast, like we have a bunch of scripts in-house that do that, but that's just because we're like, I run the script once a month, and I know how to use this thing, right? But it doesn't look like that's what Fausto, it doesn't look like that's what you're asking. It looks like you're asking, you're building a UI app doget in a library, and you want a user to be able to use that UI app. I think that's my understanding. Is it yours?
That's what I got as well.
Yeah.
And so if that's what you'd like to do, there's several ways to do this, but one of the things is I quickly coded up a script here that'll accomplish it. Obviously, you can link to the library here. And then once you do that, in order to get your docs list, you can just use our docs list API, and you do get files by type, and you pass in the enumerated type for spreadsheet. It'll get all your spreadsheets into this variable. You iterate over it, and you can get ID. Or there's also functions where you can search by name. You can query for the actual spreadsheet that you're looking for. And once you have that ID, you can just go ahead and pass it into whatever library function, let it do its thing, come back and then present the results. Other things that you can potentially do is if you don't necessarily need to have this be done in code. You can call these same functions and have the results display in a list, a Dropbox, something that people can visually see and select, and that would make it easier for them to just pick whatever file name that they want. You can, correspond that file name to an ID, and then do your thing in the background.
Right, that's good. But from a library perspective, my assumption is that you're trying to build a UI and return it, and return a UI app instance. So you would likely create a method, we call these builder methods inside your library that says, build a UI from spreadsheet ID. And from that, if you're writing, if you're building this library, I would call this library, and inside this builder, as a parameters, I would pass a spreadsheet ID. Like that is how I would do that. Or I would use I would say what's containing spreadsheet, right? There's a bunch of different ways of doing this, and I think what Kalyan is saying is that it depends on what it is you're trying to do. If you really want to build a UI as a library, I think there are a lot of challenges when that happens, right?
You don't generally want to do that. I think it would be cleaner to do it just the other way, externally. Just use the library to just have like functions that you can query and get results and responses quickly.
Right.
And do you have any examples to clarify
a
that?
A good example is if you should be able to build like a widget and add it to your UI, right? Custom widgets and whatnot. Yeah. So let's go on to some more questions.
All right.
Let's see. Is there anyone live on the Hangout right now? We've got a different setup. Hi there. All right, I guess we'll come back to it. I just wanted to see if people were on. There's Oh, hi.
There we go.
Hi there.
How are you?
Pretty good. Actually, had a related question to that question.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, why don't we take it? Because
Sure.
it seems to make sense.
Yeah. Been using the new library functionality a lot.
Okay.
And we have scripts that go into our corporate database, pull out data, display them, make charts, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And we do a lot of setting what we did before in script properties, right? We would set the name of the database, we'd set the name of the table, and so forth. The user would go into a UI app and select what data source they would want. But now if I'm using a library and I moved all of my functionality, the JDBC functionality, into a library, I don't know where to now store those values for each user in the calling spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't use script properties anymore because that will set it one time for the whole library, right? If I set the database name, for example, I have functions which build queries and put in the database name into the query, into the JDBC call.
Right.
So if I do it as a script property, then every user would overwrite each other's database name, right?
So, okay, so their script properties, there are a couple of different things. There's a script property, which is global to the script itself. And there's also this concept of a user property, which is, I think, what you may be looking for. Now, the tricky thing is, the user property will work fine. So if you set something using user property, that's something that's only set for me running the script. So I could set a user property that says, here's my JDBC information, go to town on my database. And Kalyan could have a different one that says user property.set or user property.get. Now, it's still in the same properties UI. You go to the UI and you'll see that, okay, I have the script properties that are global to the entire script, as well as user properties that are global, which are just local to just me. And that's what you probably want to do in this instance.
Had a problem with that too. That's what I was just trying half an hour ago.
What was the problem you ran into?
User properties are global to that user across all of their scripts in our domain.
That's right.
It looks like. But I have a set of 12 different similar scripts. Mm-hmm. So when a person goes and uses another spreadsheet, mm-hmm. it overwrites it on there. So I kind of need the combination this user for this script.
I see. So this functionality is going to get a little bit more complex. If you want to do it per user, per spreadsheet, or script, depending on what it is you're doing. And this is where ScriptDB is going to be useful. So we're working on an article about ScriptDB, about how to do this, how to do get by key and set by key. But what you want to do is you can at any time call it session.get effective user, not active user, get effective user. The reason you want to use effective user is because get effective user will return the user that the script is running as, and you can do get email and key off the user's email. And what you do is you build a ScriptDB instance where you say, here's the user, here is the spreadsheet ID, and here are the credentials. You store that inside ScriptDB, and you pull that up whenever you need this information. So you've got a lot of different options for persistence. ScriptDB, think of it as it's kind of like a document store for your entire script, but because you can programmatically control what data you want from it, you can say, well, this user is Eric, and the spreadsheet ID is 1, 2, 3. So I want the database that corresponds to Eric in script 1, 2, 3, and that's where you can pull back your JDBC information.
Great. And then in my library, I would just need to use a function that pulls out what is the ID of the calling spreadsheet, right?
Yes.
How would I do that?
I don't know this off the top of my head. There is
But it exists.
What's that?
But it exists. That function exists.
I think so, but I need to double check. I need to double check. Yeah, it's a get containing. It's not get containing spreadsheet. It wouldn't be named what I think it's named because I name my stuff weird. I think there should be a method that calls it because your script is running inside a spreadsheet. You can find a containing spreadsheet, and you should be able to find the container, as we call it, and dig out the ID. But I'll need to double check on that for you. So if you want, post on Stack Overflow, and I'll follow up on that question.
Great, thanks a lot.
Okay,
Excellent.
No problem. Is there anyone else that's live? And if you're not live, feel free to jump onto our Hangout, developers.google.com, and click on the Events tab. You'll see AppScript Office Hours, and there should be a button to jump onto Hangout or watch the broadcast. Okay. Let's move on to some of the questions in the moderator.
All right. Here we go. Let's refresh and see.
I just heard a sound like someone jumped on. He's playing, he's playing like the William Tell overture. I like classical music.
It's a prequel to our Los Angeles.
Yeah. What do we got?
All right. So the next question we have is, to reduce round trips, original values can be read from the sheet to array, manipulated in script, written from array to sheet. What about cell format settings on certain cells identified in my script? Can I bundle those into a single round trip is the question.
Cell format settings on certain cells. So I guess what you're asking is there like a way you could batch formats on certain cells? I don't think so. I mean, I haven't seen an API for this. I have to look what the API are calling now, but if there's no API for doing a batch setting or batch format fetch, then there isn't necessarily an easy way to do this. So I guess the question is, why are you trying to reduce the round trips? I understand that round trips do add some overhead, and sometimes you can't get around it because of the API limitations. So what you end up needing to do is figuring out how to make your script run faster, because it's important that your script appears to run fast. So if you want to reduce the number of round trips, obviously we want to reduce that as much as possible, but when you find that you can't, a common pattern that some people do is what they'll start a trigger, because a trigger will be running in the background and that'll just make something happen. And with triggers, what you can do is you can effectively get around various deadlines by what we call chaining triggers, right? So you create a trigger, it runs some code, and after it does some certain amount of executions, it creates a new trigger 10 minutes later, and it follows up and just keeps running this code. So this is effectively how you would do a very long running job. Now, we're looking at ways at making it so that we can remove deadlines for things in general, because that'd be really cool. I mean, managing triggers and rescheduling and dealing with the fault tolerance, it's really annoying. But that's one way to get around this. So I guess that what we want to do is we figure out what it is you're trying to do here, and see if we can help you make your app run buttery smooth. And I stole that from the Android guys. Buttery smooth.
All right, so do you want to?
Sure, let's see. We've got a question from Denmark.
Okay, so I'm using a tool to export spreadsheet data to OpenOffice spreadsheet files, which used at a later time in XML XSLT toolchain. Unfortunately, it seems that the export function of dates does not work properly, since the dates are saved as floats.
Dates are saved as floats. Well, I mean, they should be saved as milliseconds since a Unix epoch, which is universally understood.
The standard.
Yeah, and let's see, the export function. You're using a tool. Is this an AppScript tool, or I don't know what exactly this is, but if you export it as milliseconds since epoch, every single programming language in the world understands this and has a way to convert this back into a date object. So, like for instance, in JavaScript, you would say new date, and you would pass it the second since epoch this number, and it would work. And you could try this out. You could say new date 0, and you'll find it's like January 1st, 1970. It's like 1970, 1969. I never remember
1970, I believe.
Yeah, epoch is one of these really funny. One of these really funny things that, like, if you're not a programmer, it causes all these problems for you, right? Like, I was using, I think it was MongoDB, and I didn't realize that you couldn't save a date before 1970, and I was using this for like a birth dates database. So I was wondering, why is this guy who's like 40 years old, why does it only crash for people who are over 40? And it turns out that, it's milliseconds since epoch. So that is what that float number is. It probably is working correctly, because otherwise, how would you export a date? There are a million. Ooh, you're bad. You're not going to screw you up.
Let me postpone that a little bit.
Because dates can be represented in lots of different formats. In the U.S., for instance, we say month, day, year, but pretty much, internationally, people say
it's other formats. There's a lot of confusion that can exist. So in order to get around that, we can simply have a float number that counts, one long number.
Exactly.
You can format it however you want. Universal language math.
Okay. And there's a lot of background on dates and times, so I'm sorry if I bored a bunch of people. It's very important, though, because that causes time zones are the source of so many bugs in the world.
They're important.
We gotta understand it. All right, let's see if there's someone that's jumped on live. I heard someone jump on with some sound like, what was it, rock music? Or nope, just a bunch of black screens. And okay, well, let's go back to the Q&A then. unless someone on the black screen has a question. So just so you know, we are not looking at the chats. We're not looking at the chat screen. So if you're typing something in the chat, we're probably missing it. Sorry about that.
Okay, so you want to head to this question?
Yeah,
Let's see.
sure.
John from Washington, D.C. asks, can conditional formatting be applied from script? I don't see a method under range class, under the range class.
Is this conditional formatting for, oh, okay, this is conditional formatting for spreadsheets. Right? It's
Sounds-
like, yeah,
sounds
it's like a conditional, it's conditional
it's like
formatting. Okay, I know it. All right, I know what you're asking. So I think what you're asking is this conditional formatting is, we have this, I have this spreadsheet with my friends where if you owe someone money, you put it in a spreadsheet. If you're owed money, you put a positive number. So it's very simple that we have a conditional formatting there where I say,
Yeah.
if it's negative, you're red.
Exactly. So you can
Right.
change the formatting of the cell based on the values.
Right.
The contents there.
Yeah, you should be able to set a background color. If I'm not like, that's what. There's some other
You can
things
get
you
the
can
cell
do.
and you can change the properties of it. So I
Right.
believe you can do that.
Yeah, and in fact, running it from AppScript, it should be much more powerful than what conditional formatting allows you, because you could write it in code and you could say do this or do this or do this. But is there something specifically you're trying to do? And just a thing for our viewers: these types of code questions, they tend to be a little bit better in Stack Overflow. For a bunch of reasons. When I'm answering these questions, the first thing I want to do is go to our API reference, because, man, we've got so many APIs now.
You got a pretty extensive
Yeah.
API,
So we try to answer questions about how to design things and how to do things in AppScript. But when it comes to individual API questions, I am not Eric. I do not have the API reference in my head. Eric's laughing. He actually does have the API reference in his head. I've turned around and I've asked him questions, and he goes, "Oh yeah, it's set number format, and you've got 3 parameters." I go, "I don't know how you do that. I'm just gonna go back to being a normal human person that doesn't have superhuman capability."
So I think specifically for this question, it's asking, is there one particular API function that'll accomplish this for them? We'll have to go back and see if that's the case or not. But if not, there's a 2-step way that's just as easy and maybe more powerful than any of the already existing conditional formatting tools that you can do. And yes, if you can ask in Stack Overflow, we can provide some code examples, something like that too.
Okay. So yeah, definitely ask in Stack Overflow what it is you're trying to do, and we can see if we can help you out. So.
All right, let's see if there's any more questions here.
I don't think you need to
that's it.
refresh this page, because I'm pretty sure it's like updating whenever there's like a live update. This is kind of a cool tool. I wish we saw more use of this outside. Google Moderator, use it. It's cool stuff. So let's go back to the Hangout and let's see what's going on. Anyone on the Hangout have anything they want to ask us about or talk about?
Just the same guy that asked before, if that's all right.
If you don't mind us asking, I mean, some people, they like anonymity, but you don't have you're not wearing like a ski mask or anything. So what where are you from? What's your name? Hey, I see a little fella.
Now, my son's here too. Yeah. Actually, I'm in Croatia.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and we build lots of internal apps. We build lots of stuff on the Google entire infrastructure, but build a lot of business intelligence and business management apps right inside Google Apps using Google Apps Script and lots of stuff. Now we're moving on to Google App Engine for more advanced stuff. So,
Great.
really interested. But there's a few things that are driving me crazy. So I just wanted to ask one more question.
Yeah, sure.
One question. About, and I think this is maybe something, maybe an upgrade, maybe an actual bug, but there's the cell limits.
Right.
For spreadsheets. I had scripts that were working for a year,
Right.
JDBC again, and I started getting back too much data, cannot retrieve too much data. And then I do the math, and it turns out it's 62,000 cells in the sheet, and it's only 33 columns. So is there some other level of limitation for JDBC calls, or?
JDBC calls. So wait, you're saying it's getting back too much data from JDBC?
Well, the error is
database.
kind of non-descriptive. When I take the record set, I take the JDBC record set and I apply it into the range.
Okay.
That's where the error kicks off, is when I try to take that record set from JDBC and actually apply it into the range.
Interesting. So that's actually go on. I'm sorry.
What's really strange is for example, it was a production script, so I had to change it. I broke it down into 4 smaller queries by status, for example, and the 4 smaller ones would work. Mm-hmm. So overall, the number of cells that were being used were the same.
Right.
But if you guys run across that, I don't know what that could be.
I haven't run across specifically 62,000. I'm not terribly surprised. My guess is that something's happening where we're holding the data in memory somewhere. And in general, there are upper bounds to things. Like we don't have. I want to believe that Google has a supercomputer that has unlimited RAM, but I don't know if that's necessarily. It's true. If you can break it up and do your jobs as broken up, it does add more programmer overhead. But if it works, I wouldn't be surprised if it works better overall.
Okay, so some things are just not number of cells, but the amount of memory needed to hold that object.
It could be. It's hard to say.
Yeah, how it ties in the back.
Yeah.
We're not exactly familiar with those details.
Ow, hold on, my leg's falling asleep. Yeah, I got a standing desk recently at work, and I love it. Side tangent. But yeah, I don't know if there's necessarily, 62,000 is not a magic number. Like if you told me, yeah, for some reason, every time I go over 65, 33, what's it, 325, 326, whatever, and I'd be like, I think I know what's going on, but I don't. It doesn't sound like that's a number you're tripping. It's probably some kind of limitation you're hitting. I do know that spreadsheets, when they go above a certain amount of data inside spreadsheets, things start to really slow down. But the number's not 60,000. It's much higher than that. I don't know the exact number. So.
Okay.
So.
And one other little question I
Sure.
had that I think will interest a lot of people is about the new libraries functionality. Mm-hmm. And it seems to me that users have to have read and write access to those libraries in order to be able to use them.
I don't think that's true, actually. I don't think that's true because. Yeah, because when you publish a library, what you can do is, Eric's giving me a time check. We've got about 2 minutes left. Is when you publish a library, and if the library is just code, then I just need the key of the library, put it in my project as include libraries, and the library should just work. Now, I'm wondering if you need additional permissions to do things, like maybe your library does a thing with a specific spreadsheet, but even then, if the library is executing as you, I don't think that should cause a problem.
Yeah, see, maybe it's touching script properties or something like that, and it needs write privileges to touch script properties.
Okay, that maybe I'll need to investigate. I'll need to investigate a little bit more about this. In general, you should not. There's a library that I was using for a while, which was the Picasa app library, and I didn't need read-write access to that. It was just open to the public. So it might be because you're editing script properties or things like that. But even I know that ScriptDB, you should be able to access your own ScriptDB if you're in a library and not need read-write access. Like you don't need read-write access to my library. That's what I'm saying. So.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, no problem. In fact, we'd love to talk to you more about what you're doing and cool stuff that's going on, and App Engine and AppScript and all the cool things you're doing. But we're running out of time, unfortunately. So was there anything else that you wanted to say to our wonderful audience today?
I'm really excited to start working on the product and supporting you guys.
To start, you've been working.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Really get started. There's some exciting things coming.
Okay. All right. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. We really do appreciate it. Tell your friends. Right? Tell your friends.
Definitely.
Yeah. Tell your
and
friends.
the hackathon.
Los Angeles Hackathon. But tell your friends about the show. Tell your friends about AppScript. I mean, this is some seriously cool stuff, and you can build some really cool things really fast. Script.com, nothing to install. You just get things going. It's like, I call it cloud scripting.
No need to worry about maintenance, anything like that. Just
cloud scripting, yo. So guys, thank you guys for joining our show, and we'll see you guys next time. So this is goodbye from me, Eric, and Kalyan.